The stars looked different through the viewport when you knew you'd never see them again. Captain Dahan stood on the bridge of the transport ship Horizon's End, watching Earth grow smaller in the distance. Behind his vessel, 3,000 ships stretched across space like a river of lights. Humanity's exodus had begun. 6 months ago, the Galactic Confederation delivered their judgment. Humanity was dangerous. Humanity broke the preservation protocols. Humanity had to leave civilized space. Every human world, every station, every outpost had to be abandoned. The vote was unanimous across all 7 species of the Confederation. Not a single voice spoke for humanity. Dahan remembered the trial clearly. The council chamber was massive, filled with beings from across the galaxy. The Varathans stood tall with their scaled skin gleaming under the lights. The Lithori floated in their containment suits, bodies made of living crystal. All of them united in one purpose: removing humanity from their territory. The charges were serious. Humans had terraformed worlds marked as restricted. They built colonies in forbidden zones. They ignored warnings about ancient sites. Ambassador Jiwoo tried to explain. Those zones were empty. The warnings were millions of years old. Humanity needed space to grow. But the Confederation didn't listen. "You are reckless," Premier Voth declared. "You expand without thought. You take without asking. You are a danger to the stability we have maintained for 10,000 years." Gu stood alone at the podium. She was small compared to most species there, but her voice carried across the chamber. "You don't understand what you're doing. Those zones you forbid us from entering, those sites you call sacred, we've been protecting them. We've been protecting you." The council laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. "Protecting us." Premier Voth's voice dripped with contempt. "From what exactly?" Jiwoo's hands gripped the podium. "From what waits in the dark? From what we found 250 years ago when we first traveled faster than light. We tried to tell you about it, but you dismissed our reports as human paranoia. You called our defense network excessive, but we weren't building it for us alone. Enough of these desperate lies." Another council member interrupted. "You have 6 months to evacuate all human territories. After that, any humans remaining will be removed by force. This is our final word." Q looked across the council one last time. "Then hear my final word. You don't understand what you're protecting yourselves from. It wasn't us you needed to fear. It was what we were keeping at bay. When you dismantle our defenses, when you shut down our satellites and destroy our warning systems, you'll understand. But by then, it will be too late." She walked out of the chamber. The Confederation declared her words an empty threat. Within a week, the evacuation orders went out to every human world. Now, those 6 months were almost over. Dahan commanded just one ship in a fleet of thousands. Behind him, Earth was already occupied. Vrathan ships circled the planet like vultures. They wanted Earth for themselves, the prize of the human empire. Mars went to the Lithor, Titan to the Kelthans. Every human world was divided up before the last human even left. "Captain, we're approaching the outer rim boundary," his navigation officer reported. Lieutenant Hannah looked tired. Everyone looked tired. They'd been traveling for weeks, carrying everything humanity could salvage. "How many ships have we lost?" Dahan asked. 43 confirmed, Hannah replied quietly. "Engine failures, mostly. Some collision accidents. The old colony ships weren't built for this kind of mass exodus."
Oh. 43 ships.
Thousands of lives. And they weren't even to their destination yet. The Confederation assigned humanity to Region 447 of the Outer Rim. The charts called it unexplored territory. The reality was simpler. It was worthless space. No valuable minerals. No habitable planets. Nothing the Confederation wanted, but it would be home now. "Captain, incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. "It's from Ambassador Jiwoo. Put her through." Jiwoo's face appeared on the screen. She looked older than she had 6 months ago. The trial had aged her. "Dahan, how's the fleet?" "Still together, barely." "Ow." He paused. "Jiwoo, What you said at the trial. About what we were protecting them from? Was that real? She was quiet for a long moment. Every word. Check the archives when you have time. Search for First Contact Incident, year 2037. The real first contact.
At the one they teach in schools.
Our first faster-than-light ship, the Wanderer, found something out in dark space. Something old. Something hungry in the defense network? We built it to keep them away. Satellites, weapons platforms, warning beacons, all networked together in a perimeter around human space. For 250 years, it worked. They stayed in the dark, and we stayed safe. We tried to tell the Confederation when we met them a century ago, but they thought we were making up stories to seem important. Hyen felt cold, and now they're shutting down the network. Taking it apart for scrap? Yes, Kiwu's expression was grim. I estimate we have maybe 3 months before the perimeter fails completely. Maybe less. We should warn them again. I tried. I sent 7 messages to the council. All ignored. She leaned closer to the camera. Daehyan, keep the fleet together. Keep our people safe. What's coming? What the Confederation is about to face. We can't stop it. Not from out here. All we can do is survive. The transmission ended. Daehyan stood alone on the bridge, looking at the stars. Somewhere behind them, Earth continued to spin. The Vrothan were probably celebrating their conquest right now. They had no idea what was coming. Captain, we've crossed the boundary, Hannah reported. We're officially in the Outer Rim now. We're in our new territory. Empty space and worthless rocks. This was what humanity had been reduced to. But they were alive. They were together. And according to Jiwoo, they might be the only ones who would survive what came next. All ships, this is Captain Daehyan of the Horizon's End. He broadcast to the fleet. We've crossed into our new home. It's not much, but it's ours. Begin scanning for suitable locations to establish our first settlements. Humanity didn't end today. We're just beginning again. As his ship moved deeper into the Outer Rim, Daehyan couldn't shake Jiwoo's words from his mind. 3 months, she said. 3 months before the perimeter. Failed 3 months before the Confederation. Learned why humanity had built those defenses. 3 months before they understood that. Jiwoo's warning wasn't a threat. It was mercy behind them. In the space they once called home, automated defense satellites began their shutdown sequences one by one. The network that humanity spent 2 centuries building started to go dark, and in the deepest darkness of space, beyond where any telescope could see, something ancient stirred. Something that had been waiting patiently at the edge of the light. Something that finally sensed the barriers weakening. The harvest had begun to wake. Governor Krell stood in what used to be the human Capitol building in Seoul. The Vrothan commander looked out over the city with satisfaction. Earth was his now, the greatest prize of the human exile, and it belonged to him. Already, construction crews were tearing down human monuments and building new ones. By next year, this city would be called New Vareth, and no trace of humanity would remain. Governor, the science team has another report, his aide announced. Krell waved his hand dismissively. More complaining about the human installations, I assume? Yes, sir. Lead scientist Thien requests an audience. Fine. Send her in. Thien entered the office carrying a data tablet. She was Lithor, her crystalline body reflecting light in strange patterns. Unlike most of her species, she had spent years studying human technology. She found it fascinating even if the humans themselves were gone now. Governor Krell, we have a serious problem, Thien began. The human installations across this planet are far more extensive than we initially thought. We've found over 10,000 facilities, all connected in some kind of network. So, dismantle them. We need the space for our own infrastructure. That's the problem, sir. Every facility we try to access has the same warning. Multiple languages, including several we don't recognize. The message is clear. Do not deactivate these systems. Krell laughed. Human paranoia. They built their little defense network to feel important. Now that they're gone, we don't need their outdated technology. Shut it all down and salvage what's useful. But Governor, the energy readings suggest this network extends far beyond Earth. We're detecting similar installations on Mars, the asteroid belt, even on the outer planets. Whatever this system is, it's massive. All the more reason to dismantle it, Krell said firmly. Every day those human machines run. They consume resources that belong to the Confederation now. I want them offline within the month. Thien wanted to argue, but knew it was useless. Krell was a military commander, not a scientist. He saw everything as either a threat or a resource. Nuance didn't exist in his worldview. As you command, Governor. She left the office and returned to her research station. Her team had been working around the clock to understand the human network. The more they learned, the more worried she became. This wasn't just a defense system. It was something bigger. Something the humans built with desperate urgency. But why? While Thien worked, someone else watched from the shadows. Hyan Wu had been living in the mountains outside Seoul for 3 months now. When the evacuation orders came, most humans left obediently. But not him. He couldn't leave Earth. This was his home, his world, and no alien government could force him away, so he stayed. He hid in the wilderness with a small group of others who refused to leave. They watched as the Vrathan took over their cities. They saw the monuments torn down, the buildings renamed, the history erased, and now they saw something else. Something that terrified them. Hyan Wu had worked as a technician for the Earth's defense network before the exile. He knew what those installations were for. He knew what they protected against. And he knew what would happen when they went offline. He tried to warn them. He sent encrypted messages to Governor Krell's office. He broadcast warnings on every frequency he could access. But no one listened. The Confederation thought he was just a bitter human, angry about losing his world. They didn't understand. None of them understood. 2 months after the occupation began, Thien made a breakthrough. She managed to access one of the human facilities without triggering the security protocols. Inside, she found archives, detailed records dating back 250 years. Records of something the humans called the First Contact Incident. She read through the files with growing horror. The human ship Wanderer, traveling faster than light for the first time, detected massive objects in dark space. Objects that defied physics. Objects that were alive somehow, feeding on energy and matter. The humans tried to communicate. The response was attack. The Wanderer barely escaped. Only 3 crew members survived out of 20. When they reported what they found, the human government immediately began building defenses. Not just weapons, but a perimeter. A barrier of networked satellites and weapons platforms designed to keep those things away. For 250 years, it worked. And now, the Confederation was shutting it down. Thien rushed to Governor Krell's office. Governor, you need to see this. The human archives explain everything. The defense network isn't about paranoia. It's protecting us from something real. Something dangerous. Krell barely looked up from his paperwork. Scientist Thien, I don't have time for human fairy tales. Those archives are probably falsified data meant to scare us into leaving their systems active. But sir, the detail in these records, the consistency across multiple sources enough? Krell's voice echoed through the office. I have given you a direct order. Shut down the human network. If you cannot do this, I will find someone who can. Thien left defeated. She knew the truth now, but no one would listen. The Confederation was too proud to certain of their superiority. They couldn't imagine that humans, the species they just exiled, might have been protecting them all along. She tried one last thing. She sent a message into the Outer Rim trying to reach the human fleet, trying to ask them what to do. But the message never reached its destination. Confederation sensors intercepted it and deleted it as unauthorized contact with exiled populations. 3 weeks later, the last major hub of the human defense network went offline. Thien was there when it happened. The facility simply powered down, its lights going dark one by one. The hum of energy that had filled the building for centuries went silent. "Well done, everyone," the demolition coordinator announced. This was the last major installation. The human network is officially deactivated. "We can begin full salvage operations tomorrow," the team celebrated. Thene did not. She stood in the darkness of the now-dead facility and felt a deep sense of dread. That night, the deep space monitoring stations went silent. All of them, simultaneously. The stations that the Confederation had placed at the edge of former human territory. The ones meant to watch for any human ships trying to return. They stopped transmitting. Governor Krell assumed it was a technical malfunction. "Send a repair ship," he ordered. The repair ship never came back. No distress call. No warning. It simply vanished from sensors. Another technical issue, Krell decided. "Send 2 more ships." Those ships vanished too. Hyun-woo watched from his hidden camp in the mountains. He could see the lights in the sky. New lights. Lights that moved in ways that ships didn't move. Lights that seemed to pulse with hunger. He sent one final message to the Confederation. "You were warned. They're coming. May whatever gods you believe in have mercy on you, because they won't." Then he shut down all his equipment and went deeper into the wilderness. If the things in the dark were truly coming back, the mountains might be the only safe place left. Might be in orbit above Earth. Vrathan patrol ships detected unusual readings. Objects approaching from deep space. Large objects. When they tried to scan them, their instruments failed. When they tried to communicate, there was no response. When they tried to run, it was already too late. The first ship was torn apart in seconds. The second managed to broadcast a partial distress call before its transmission cut to static. By morning, 16 ships had vanished from Earth's orbital space. Governor Krell finally understood that something was wrong. He sent an urgent message to the Confederation Council. "We need reinforcements. Unknown hostiles in the former human territory. Multiple ships lost." The Council's response came quickly. "Reinforcements en route. Defend your position, Governor. We will not lose Earth to whatever human trap this is." But it wasn't a human trap. Thene knew that. She stood in her laboratory, looking at the old human files still displayed on her screen. The warnings were clear. The evidence was overwhelming. And now it was too late. She sent one message to her homeworld. "Tell my family I love them. And tell the Council they should have listened to the humans." Outside her window, the sky began to change. The stars disappeared one by one, blocked by something massive. Something that had been waiting in the dark for 250 years. Something that was finally free to feed again. The harvest had arrived. The human settlement in the outer rim wasn't much to look at. A dozen asteroid bases, 3 orbital stations, and temporary shelters on 2 barely habitable moons. But it was home now, and the 3 million humans living there had started to rebuild. They had no choice. This was all they had left. Admiral Sujin walked through the main corridor of Station Haven, the largest of their settlements. People nodded to her as she passed. Some smiled. Most just looked tired. Building a new civilization from nothing was exhausting work. But they were doing it. Humans were good at surviving. She entered the command center, where Captain Daehan was waiting. With him was a young engineer named Taeyang, barely 20 years old, but already making a name for himself. The kid was brilliant with old technology, understanding systems that most engineers had forgotten about. "Admiral, you need to see what Taeyang found," Daehan said. His voice was serious, worried. "Show me." Taeyang brought up a holographic display. "I've been going through the old archives. The really old ones, from before the Confederation made contact with us. I found something classified. Something that explains everything about our defense network." The display showed a ship. The Wanderer, humanity's first faster-than-light vessel. The date was 2037, nearly 250 years ago. "Everyone knows about the Wanderer," Sujin said. "It was our first FTL test. Successful mission. Came back with data about deep space." "That's the official story," Taeyang said quietly. "But it's not the truth. Watch this." He played a recording. The voice was crackling, distorted by age and damage, but still understandable. "This is Captain Park of the Wanderer. We've encountered something in deep space. Something massive. We thought they were ships at first, but they're alive. They're coming toward us." There, the recording dissolved into screams and static. Sujin felt cold. "What happened?" "The Wanderer made it back, but barely," Taeyang explained. "Out of 20 crew members, only 3 survived. They reported finding entities in dark space, beings that existed in the void between stars, ancient things that fed on energy and technology. The survivors said these things were hunting civilizations, consuming them, and then waiting in the dark for the next one to find. Why didn't we ever hear about this?" Daehyun answered. "Because it would have caused panic. The government classified everything, but they believed the survivors. Within a year, they started building the defense network. Satellites, weapons platforms, warning beacons, all designed to create a perimeter that these things couldn't cross. And it worked," Taeyang continued. "For 250 years, the network kept them away. When we met the Confederation, we tried to tell them about it, but they didn't believe us. They thought we were making up stories to seem important. So we just kept maintaining the network, protecting not just ourselves, but all of civilized space." Sujin stared at the display. "And now the Confederation is dismantling it."
Right.
"According to my calculations, the network should have failed completely about 2 weeks ago. The perimeter is gone." The command center went silent. Everyone understood what that meant. The things that humanity had kept away for 2.5 centuries were free to move again. Free to hunt. Free to feed. "We have to warn the Confederation," someone said. "Ambassador Jiwoo already tried," Daehyun replied. "Multiple times. They're not listening. They think it's humans trying to scare." "Then, what do we do?" Before anyone could answer, the communications officer called out, "Admiral, incoming transmission. It's from Earth. Emergency frequency. Put it through." The voice that came through was Wraithen, Governor Krell. But he didn't sound arrogant anymore. He sounded terrified. "This is Governor Krell on Earth to any Confederation forces. We are under attack by unknown hostiles, requesting immediate assistance. They're everywhere. They're coming from dark space. They're inside the planetary defense grid. We can't stop them." There, the transmission cut to static. Then silenced. Sujin looked at her command staff. Every face showed the same expression: horror and understanding. It had begun. "Get me a channel to the Confederation Council," Sujin ordered. "Emergency priority." "Admiral, they're not accepting transmissions from us," the communications officer reported. "We're still classified as exiled populations." "Override it. Use every emergency code we have. They'll listen now." It took 20 minutes to break through the Confederation's communication barriers. When Premier Voth's face appeared on the screen, he looked shaken. Behind him, the council chamber was in chaos. Admiral Sujin Voth said. His voice was strained. "You've heard? About Earth?" "Yes, we're receiving reports from multiple systems now. The entities are spreading fast." "Entities?" Voth's expression hardened. "You know what these things are? We tried to tell you. 250 years ago? 50 years ago when we first met. 6 months ago, when Ambassador Jiwoo warned you. We tried to tell you over and over. But you wouldn't listen. Then tell me now." Voth was almost shouting. "What are they? How do we fight them?" Sujin took a deep breath. "We call them the Harvest. They're ancient, older than any civilization we know. They exist in dark space, in the void between stars. They feed on energy and technology. The more advanced a civilization is, the more attractive it is to them. They're drawn to power sources, to ships, to anything that generates energy. How did humans survive them? We built a perimeter. The defense network you forced us to abandon. It wasn't designed to keep you out. It was designed to keep them away. Satellites generating a specific frequency that they avoid. Weapons platforms designed to destroy them if they got too close. Warning beacons to alert us if the perimeter was breached. For 250 years, it worked. Until we shut it down, Voth said quietly. The realization was clearly painful. Yes. Can it be rebuilt? Taeyang stepped forward. Premier Voth, I'm Engineer Taeyang. I've analyzed the old network specifications. Rebuilding it would take years. Years we don't have. But there might be another way. A smaller network concentrated around the core Confederation worlds. It wouldn't be perfect, but it could create a safe zone. What would you need? Ships. Lots of ships. They'd need to position themselves at specific coordinates and run the network protocols continuously. The ships would become part of the defense grid. Their crews would have to stay on station indefinitely. That's a death sentence, someone said off-screen.
Yes.
Taeyang admitted. The ships can't leave their positions without the network failing, and running the protocols will slowly drain the ship's systems. Eventually, they'll merge completely with the network. But it's the only way. Premier Voth was quiet for a long moment. Why are you telling us this? We exiled you. We took your worlds. We dismissed your warnings. Why would you help us? Sujin met his eyes. Because someone has to stand against the dark. That's what humanity does. We don't fight for glory or gratitude. We fight because it's necessary. Because if we don't, billions will die. Even if those billions didn't believe us. Even if they forced us away. There still lives. They still matter, Admiral. I don't know what to say. Say you'll send whatever forces you can spare to buy us time. We need to get ships into position before the harvest spreads too far. Every hour we delay, more worlds fall. You'll have everything we can give you. And Admiral, I'm sorry. For the exile. For not listening. For all of it. Save your apologies for after we survive this, Sujin said. Day high and start gathering volunteers. Anyone willing to crew the relay ships? Make sure they understand what they're signing up for. Daehyun saluted. Already done. I'm volunteering my ship. Horizon's End will be the first relay point. Daehyun, you understand what that means? I understand perfectly. This is what I was always meant to do. What humanity was always meant to do. We stand watch in the dark so others can sleep safely. Sujin wanted to argue, but she saw the determination in his eyes. Daehyun had made his choice. In the next few hours, 19 more captains would make the same choice. 20 ships, 20 crews, all volunteering to become permanent guardians of the perimeter, all accepting that they would never see their families again, never set foot on solid ground, never do anything except maintain the barrier between civilization and the harvest. It was madness. It was heroic. It was the most human thing imaginable. Then let's begin, Sujin said. And may we survive what comes next. Earth was dying. Not slowly, not with warning, but rapidly and completely. The harvest had arrived in force, and nothing the Varathan threw at them made any difference. Ships vanished in flashes of dark energy. Orbital platforms were torn apart like paper. The things from dark space were unstoppable. Governor Krell recorded one final message before his command center lost power. His voice shook with fear and regret. To whoever finds this, we were wrong. The humans weren't the danger. They were protecting us. They tried to warn us, and we laughed at them. Now we're paying the price. Tell the Council. Tell everyone. The humans were right. They were always right. The transmission ended. Governor Krell was never heard from again. Across former human territory, the story repeated itself. Mars fell within 36 hours. Titan lasted barely a day. The asteroid colonies were consumed in minutes. Every world the Confederation had claimed from humanity was being destroyed. The harvest moved through the systems like a plague, feeding on technology and energy, growing stronger with each world it consumed. The Confederation fleet tried to fight back. Admiral Vex of the Vrathan Fourth Fleet engaged the harvest near Jupiter with 200 warships. Within an hour, only 3 ships limped away, heavily damaged and barely functional. Vex sent a desperate message to the Council before his flagship was destroyed. They're not ships. They're living things. Energy-based entities that phase in and out of normal space. Our weapons pass right through them most of the time. When they do hit, the damage regenerates instantly. We're not fighting an army. We're fighting a force of nature. A hungry one. Premier Voth watched the reports come in with growing horror. 47 star systems had gone dark. Billions were dead or missing. The Confederation was collapsing faster than anyone thought possible. And the worst part was knowing that this could have been prevented. The humans had warned them. The humans had built defenses against this exact threat, and the Confederation had destroyed those defenses out of pride and ignorance. Premier, the human fleet is requesting permission to enter Confederation space, an aide reported. Granted immediately. Give them whatever they need. Sir, the council members are protesting. They say, allowing the exiled humans back sets a dangerous precedent. Voth slammed his hand on the desk. Tell the council that precedent doesn't matter if we're all dead? The humans are the only ones who know how to fight these things. Let them through, or I'll do it by my own authority. The council reluctantly agreed. They had no choice. The humans were their only hope. Admiral Sujin led the human fleet back into what used to be their territory. It felt strange, returning to these stars. 3 months ago, they'd been forced to leave. Now they were coming back as saviors. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. All ships, this is Admiral Sujin. You know the mission. 20 relay ships will position themselves at the coordinates provided by Engineer Taeyang. The rest of us will buy them time to establish the network. The harvest is spreading fast. Every minute counts. Captain Daehyun listened from the bridge of Horizon's End. His ship would be the first relay point, the first to lock into position and begin running the network protocols, the first to sacrifice mobility and safety for the sake of the mission. He looked at his crew. They all volunteered, knowing they'd never leave this ship again. Lieutenant Hannah sat at the navigation console, her hands steady. The engineering team worked below decks, preparing the systems. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone chose to be here anyway. Crew of Horizon's End, Daehyun announced. In a few hours, we'll reach our position. Once we activate the network protocols, we become part of the perimeter. We won't be able to leave. We won't be able to shut down. We'll be the first light in the new defense line. I'm honored to serve with all of you. Honored to serve, Captain, Hannah replied. The rest of the crew echoed her words, while the relay ships moved into position. The rest of the human fleet engaged the harvest. It wasn't about winning. It was about buying time. Every harvest entity they destroyed or delayed meant a few more minutes for the relay ships to get ready. Pilot Yunbai led a squadron of fighters against a massive harvest entity near Saturn. The thing was enormous, easily the size of a moon, pulsing with dark energy that made sensor readings go crazy. Her squadron hit it with everything they had: missiles, energy, weapons, even ramming attacks when ammunition ran out. Keep hitting it, Yunbai shouted over the communications channel. We just need to slow it down. 3 fighters were destroyed in the first pass. 5 more in the second, but they accomplished their goal. The harvest entity turned away from its path toward the relay ships and came after the fighters instead. Yunbai led it on a chase through Saturn's rings, using the ice and rock for cover. Squadron, this is Yunbai. I'm going to lead it into the planet's upper atmosphere. The gravity might disrupt it. Break off and rejoin the main fleet. We're not leaving you, one of her pilots responded. It's an order. Break off now. Reluctantly, the remaining fighters peeled away. Yunbai took her ship deep into Saturn's atmosphere, the harvest entity following close behind. The pressure was incredible. Her ship's hull started to buckle. Warning alarms screamed, but she kept going, pushing deeper, pulling the entity with her. At the last second, she ejected. Her escape pod shot out of Saturn's gravity well while her fighter continued down, the harvest entity still following it. She watched on her emergency sensors as both her ship and the entity vanished into the planet's crushing depths. This is Pilot Yoon by 2 any ships in range. I'm in an escape pod near Saturn. Could use a pickup when convenient. The response came from an unexpected source. Pilot Yun Bai, this is Science Officer Thien aboard the research vessel Crystal Light. We have your location. Coming to get you. Thien, the Lethri scientist from Earth. She survived, Thien. How did you get off Earth? Early. When the harvest attacked, I grabbed as much research data as I could and ran. A transport ship picked me up in the chaos. I've been analyzing the harvest's patterns and weaknesses. I think I have information that can help and get me aboard. We have work to do. While the human fighters bought time, the relay ships reached their positions. Daehyun watched his navigation display as Horizon's End arrived at the first coordinate point. Around him in a vast sphere, the other 19 ships were moving into their positions. Together they would form the framework of the new perimeter. All systems ready, Captain, Hannah reported. Network protocols are loaded. We're ready to activate on your command. Daehyun opened a channel to the other relay ships. This is Captain Daehyun to all relay vessels. We're about to activate the network. Once we begin, there's no turning back. Our ships will become part of the defense grid. We'll be guardians of the perimeter. This is our purpose. This is what humanity was always meant to do. On my mark, 3, 2, 1. Activate. 20 ships activated their network protocols simultaneously. The effect was immediate and visible. Energy fields spread out from each ship, connecting with the others, forming a web of light across space. The perimeter was forming. Not as strong as the old one, not as extensive, but functional. A barrier against the harvest. Daehyun felt his ship shudder as the protocols took hold. Systems began to merge with the network. The ship's core started running routines that couldn't be stopped. He was part of something bigger now. Part of the defense that would protect billions of lives. Captain, the harvest is testing the perimeter, Hannah reported. They're probing for weak points. Let them try. This network was built from 250 years of experience. They won't get through. On Earth, the few survivors watched the sky change. The dark entities that had been consuming the planet suddenly pulled back. They couldn't cross the new perimeter. Hien Wu emerged from his mountain hideout and saw the lights in space. The network, the humans came back. Against all reason, despite everything the Confederation did to them, humans came back to save them. He sent a simple message into space. Thank you. Aboard Horizon's End, Daehyun received that message. He smiled. This was why they came back. Not for gratitude, though it was nice to receive. They came back because it was the right thing to do. Because someone had to stand watch. Because that's what humans did. Premier Voth opened a channel to the human fleet. Admiral Sujin, Captain Daehyun, all human forces. The perimeter is holding. You've saved us. You've saved billions of lives. How can we ever repay this? Daehyun answered before Sujin could. You can listen next time. When we warn you about something, when we try to tell you about dangers in the dark, you listen. That's all we ask. You have my word? The Confederation's word. Then we're satisfied, Daehyun said. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a perimeter to maintain. For the rest of my life, the channel closed. Daehyun looked at his crew. They all understood what they'd become. Living relays. Guardians in the dark. It wasn't the future they imagined, but it was a future worth having. Outside the ship, the harvest waited beyond the perimeter. Still hungry? Still dangerous. But contained. And humanity stood watch, making sure it stayed that way. 6 months after the harvest was contained, the galaxy was still recovering. 47 worlds had been completely destroyed. Billions of lives were lost. The Confederation's military forces were reduced to barely 30% of their original strength. But they survived. Because humanity came back. Because 20 ships and their crews chose to become eternal guardians, Captain Daehyun no longer recognized his ship. Horizon's End had merged almost completely with the network now. The bridge looked different. Screens displayed information and patterns as human eyes could barely process. The walls hummed with energy that flowed through the perimeter constantly. His crew had adapted, becoming part of the ship as much as the ship was part of the network. Lieutenant Hannah checked the sensor readings. Captain, We're detecting movement at grid section 7. Harvest entities testing the barrier again. How many? 3. Medium size. They're probing for weaknesses. Daehyun activated the defense protocols. Energy surged through the network, concentrating at section 7. The harvest entities touched the barrier and recoiled. They couldn't cross. They never could. But they kept trying, day after day, looking for a gap that didn't exist. They're persistent, Hannah observed. They're hungry. They've been hungry for millions of years. A barrier isn't going to change their nature, but it will keep them out. That's all that matters. On the other relay ships, similar scenes played out. 20 captains and their crews had become one with their ships, maintaining the perimeter through constant vigilance. They couldn't leave. They couldn't stop, but they could communicate with each other. Sharing the burden of their eternal watch, Captain Minho of the relay ship Eternal Dawn sent a message to Daehyun. How are you holding up? Same as yesterday. Same as tomorrow will be. You. My engineer says we're at 73% integration with the network now. By next year, we'll be fully merged. No turning back after that. There was no turning back the moment we activated the protocols, Daehyun replied. We knew that. We chose it anyway. No regrets. Daehyun thought about it. He'd never see Earth again. Never walk on solid ground. Never hold anyone who wasn't part of his crew. His whole existence was now this ship and this mission. But when he looked at the sensor displays showing civilized space safe behind the perimeter, he knew the answer. No regrets. We're doing what needs to be done. That's enough. Back in Confederation space, life was returning to normal. Slowly, the occupied human worlds were being restored. Premier Voth had issued a formal apology and full reparations to humanity. The exile was officially ended. Humans were free to return to their territory. More than that, they were honored as saviors. Ambassador Jiwoo stood before the Confederation Council once more. But this time, the chamber was different. A new seat had been added. A human seat, equal in status to all other member species. Ambassador Jiwoo, Premier Voth said formally. On behalf of the Galactic Confederation, I offer our deepest apologies for the exile. We were wrong. We were arrogant. We didn't listen when we should have. Humanity warned us about the harvest. Humanity built defenses to protect all of us. And when we destroyed those defenses and faced the consequences, humanity saved us anyway. We don't deserve such mercy. Gu stood at the podium. She looked older now. The past year had aged everyone. Premier Voth, members of the council. We didn't come back for gratitude. We didn't save you to hold it over you. We came back because it was the right thing to do. Because that's what civilized beings do. We help each other, even when it's hard, even when there's bad history. Nevertheless, we owe you everything. Name your terms for reconciliation. First, humanity will maintain control of the perimeter defense network. This is not negotiable. We understand this threat better than anyone. Second, the 20 relay ships and their crews will be honored as guardians of the Confederation. They're sacrificing everything to keep us safe. They deserve recognition. Third, the warning systems humanity built will never be dismantled again. Never. If we detect another threat like the harvest, you'll listen. Agreed. All of it. Is there anything else? Gu smiled slightly. Yes, we want Earth back, and Mars, and Titan, and every other world that was ours. We'll share them with your people if you wish. We'll work together. But they're human worlds. They always were. Of course, the human territories are yours again. We never should have taken them. Council voted unanimously. For the second time, they all agreed on humanity's fate. But this time, it was welcome, not exile. This time, it was respect, not fear. Admiral Sujin oversaw the return to Earth. The Vrathan had done extensive damage during their brief occupation. But the planet was still alive. Still beautiful, humans began returning to their home world in waves. Millions of people seeing their birth planet for the first time in over a year. Hyenwu, came down from the mountains when he heard humanity was coming back. He'd survived the harvest by hiding. He'd survived the occupation by staying quiet. Now he could finally stop hiding. He met the first transport ships in Seoul, helping newcomers understand what had changed and what remained. "Is it true?" a young woman asked him. "Did the humans in the relay ships really give up everything to save everyone?" "It's true," Hyen-woo confirmed. 20 ships. 20 crews. They'll never leave their stations. They became part of the network. Permanent guardians. It's incredible. Why would they do that? Because someone had to. And humans have always been good at standing watch in the dark. Dr. Hannah, working from her partially merged ship, led the scientific research into the harvest. She coordinated with Theon, who had survived Earth's fall and was now the Confederation's leading expert on the entities. Together, they made breakthrough after breakthrough. "The harvest isn't just feeding on energy," Theon explained during one of their research calls. "They're feeding on potential, on possibility. Advanced civilizations create so much potential, so many possible futures, and the harvest consumes that. It's not just destroying the present, it's destroying what could have been. That's why they're drawn to technology," Hannah added. "Technology represents potential. The more advanced we are, the more possible futures we create. We're like beacons to them, so how do we stop them permanently? I don't know if we can, but we can contain them. The network is holding. As long as we maintain it, they can't reach civilized space. As long as we maintain it," Theon repeated quietly. "That means forever, doesn't it? The relay ships can never stop." "No, they can't." Both scientists were quiet. The weight of that truth was heavy. 20 ships and their crews, keeping watch for eternity. It seemed impossible. Cruel, even. But it was also necessary. Engineer Tae-young had become something of a hero among humans. His calculations made the new perimeter possible, but he didn't think of himself as a hero. He was just an engineer who solved a problem. Now he worked on improving the network, finding ways to make it more efficient, less draining on the relay ships. "If I can reduce the power requirements by even 5%, he explained to Sujin, "that's 5% longer those ships can function. 5% more time before they fully integrate with the network." "Every bit helps," Sujin agreed. "But Taeyang, they're already past the point of no return, right? Even if we could power down the network safely, those crews can't leave their ships anymore." "No. But maybe we can make their existence more comfortable, less painful. They deserve that much." 1 year after the new perimeter was established, the Confederation built a memorial. It stood in space at the exact center point of the relay ship's formation, a massive structure visible from millions of kilometers away. On it were inscribed the names of every crew member on the 20 relay ships. Every person who gave up their future so others could have one. The inscription at the base was simple: "I stand watch in the dark so we may walk in the light." Humanity's gift to the galaxy, never forgotten, forever honored. Captain Daehyun attended the dedication ceremony remotely. His face appeared on screens across civilized space as he spoke. "People of the Confederation, my crew and I, along with the crews of 19 other ships, didn't do this for glory. We didn't do it for memorials or honors. We did it because it needed to be done. Because the harvest would have destroyed everything if we didn't act. We're not heroes. We're just people doing our job. But I'll admit, it's nice to know we're not forgotten." Premier Voth spoke next. "You will never be forgotten. As long as the Confederation exists, as long as civilization continues, your names will be remembered. Your sacrifice will be taught to every child. You are the guardians who saved the galaxy." After the ceremony, Daehyun recorded a final message. He knew it would be played for generations to come. It would become part of history, part of the story of how humanity saved everyone. To those who come after, remember this: we didn't return for gratitude. We didn't fight for glory. We came back because this is what humanity does. When the darkness comes, we stand in the gap. When others fall, we hold the line. Not because we're stronger or smarter or better, but because someone has to, and we warned them. We told them what was coming. They didn't listen until it was almost too late. So learn from that. When someone warns you about dangers in the dark, listen. When someone builds defenses to protect you, respect those defenses. And when the darkness comes again, because it always does, stand together. That's how we survive. That's how civilization continues. The message ended. Captain Dayhine returned to his duties, monitoring the perimeter, watching for threats, maintaining the barrier that kept the harvest away. It was his life now, his purpose. And in a strange way, he was content with it. Outside the perimeter, the harvest waited, patient, hungry, eternal. But inside the perimeter, civilization thrived. Humans and aliens working together, building, creating, living, all because 20. Ships and their crews chose to stand guard. The camera pulled back, showing Horizon's End and the other relay ships forming a ring of light around the galaxy. In the darkness beyond, the harvest lurked. But humanity stood between them and civilization, and they would stand there forever, watching, waiting, protecting, because that's what humanity does.